Hey YouTube, Sam here. Well, as many of you know, I'm trying to build a welding table. In the midst of doing that, I'm trying to figure out a way to cut metal straighter and flatter without investing in another machine, which at some point I know I'm going to have to do if I do, a lot of this kind of stuff or decide to. But regardless, I tried buying this Concord blade off of Amazon, and it did 3 pretty good cuts, worked alright, but with this machine did not work. Although I am going to say it did fail because it says that at 5,350 RPM, which is less than what this machine, or more than what this machine does, it should be able to cut these things, and it shows a machine similar to what I was using it on to do that. To look around, and I used to use, and I gotta go find it. In the past I've used this one, but the hole here is bigger than the, I believe it's a 5/8 arbor is what I need. And I've used things inside of this and made it work with this machine, but it always kind of rattled a little bit and probably was unsafe. I probably shouldn't have been doing that, but it did work in the past. But so I looked online to see if I could find something that would fit this machine, and I came on this. And at Home Depot, they have these Diablo metal cutoff blades. They are a 10-inch, which is what this saw takes. And the RPM goes up to 6,100 RPM, which yet again, this machine only goes to 5,000. So it's well within the RPMs of this blade. And because I know that has worked in the past, I decided to try these out. And I went ahead and bought a couple of them. I got one on the machine right now. I have not used it yet. You guys will get to see my very first cut happen. But these were only like $5, so I went ahead and grabbed a couple of them. In fact, they weren't even quite, they were like $4.95 or something like that. One downside though, I had to drive quite a ways to a different Home Depot because my local one that's closer to me did not have these, unfortunately, and they would not send them from one to the other, which kind of annoyed me. So if Home Depot's listening, that was pretty annoying. That I was willing to wait a day or two if they needed some time to get them there, but they wouldn't send them from one to another. I could have them probably online delivered to my store, which I may do if this works, but right now I'm just trying to test them out to see if they're gonna work. These machines are not made for metal cutting. This has been broke in the past from something else that happened. But the last time using that metal blade, it really kind of put a lot of markings in this, which, yet again, I didn't pay very much for these machines. This is one of those places where if you do anything I do and you hurt your machine or yourself, I'm not responsible. Now, without further ado, we will get to it. I'm trying to get as flat as I can, and this will be a lot better than trying to do it by hand. Now I'm just trying to even the bottoms of these up because there was grinding and stuff welded on them. You'll see that in my actual video for the table. But so I'm just trying to make a nice flat edge on the end of each one of these and taking off, ½ inch or so. And here we go. Okay, well, I noticed when I got to the bottom it just didn't want to cut, so I had to just kind of turn it a little bit and trying to keep it as flat as I could, just turn it a little bit, and that cut right through. So it does pretty well. It's like the metal one. When you first start out at these top parts and the bottom part, it's kind of difficult, but when you're going through the center, or when it's cutting lengthways, I guess you would say, it seems to do a pretty good job. But definitely eye protection, ear protection, glove protection, and if you got holes in your gloves, like I do here, if you got one there, and you touch that, it's probably going to be really hot. So, you've been forewarned. Alright, well, that seemed to work pretty well. It took a little bit longer than the other one when it was working, but also if I maybe turn it a little bit and a couple of times maybe in that cut, that might make it go a little quicker. I'll experiment a little bit of a side note here. I figured something out. Unfortunately on my last one I figured this out. But I went ahead and brought this down and put a knock in, niche, knock, what do I want to say? A nick in it. Anyway, so I knew where it was I was cutting at, and then I took my regular cutoff wheel and just went through it, all the way through it with this, up to the edge that was, because this is a lot thicker than this. Anyway, cut through that and got it all the way through, and then when I brought this down, it cut a lot quicker until you get to the part down here. And then I just, you know, carefully kind of lifted this up and turned it a little bit and brought it down and turned it a little bit and brought it down, and then it cut it right through. So a little bit of a tip, I guess, on maybe a little bit easier way of doing it. But this does seem to be working pretty well. It's not using up the blade a ton from what I can see, so we'll see how many blades I go through in the end. You'll have to keep an eye out maybe on my welding table, and I'll talk about that. I thought I'd throw this in here as well too, because the stuff I tested the metal blade on was square stock, and I was cutting round stock with the first part of this. But I do have a square piece here I need to cut, so I'm going to go ahead and use the Diablo blade on that, and we'll see how it does. Alright, well, I don't know if you noticed that. This is where I say you might have problems. I started noticing a smell and some smoke, and what happened is that plastic back there has melted pretty much through. I went ahead and put kind of some of the melted pieces back in there, but you can kind of see maybe down here there's a little stringy black thing here. I don't know if you can see that, but the plastic is melted. So what I'm actually going to do is go ahead and I think I can pull this piece off right here, because it's this piece right here. I'm going to try and do that. And I've gotten it, you know, to where it's pretty close to where it is, or a little bit over. So I'm trying to be right inside there so it just barely touches this edge here, because this is the piece I want to keep. So I want to make sure that this edge here is, you know, flat with what's over here. So I went ahead and flipped it up, because it does seem to cut better when you aren't trying to cut flat across. It cuts better in that angle. I'm going to leave that full speed right there, because that shows how much way easier if this was just a, you know, a flat piece of stock or something like that turned on end, that would cut really quickly and fast. But it did cut through the square, bigger stuff. We still got a lot of blade left, and I've made 1, 2, 3, 4 of the cuts with the circular ones, the round bar ones. Take my mask off here, and this one here. And there's quite a bit of blade left, but I have got further damaged my machine, kind of thing. Hopefully, I can't tell, I think this could be plastic here too, so I'm going to keep an eye on this and make sure that this isn't getting too worn out. Plus the you can see where this is burning a little bit here, so I want to keep an eye on that as well, because I don't want to make this unusable as well. I have actually thought about maybe even taking that off, which would be a bad idea in most cases, but in this case I may just do that, because I don't want to have a fire and I don't want to ruin this any further. So yet again, you choose to do what you want to do. And here's some angle iron, and just from playing around with it, I've realized, because I cut the end off here so I could get a good measurement for what I'm cutting here, and what I realized is actually flipping it this way, it cuts bar none way better, and it cuts all the way through. Because trying to flip it and then flip it again, it was pretty difficult to get the cut straight, so I found this to work, so that's how I'm doing it. So I cut like 10 or 11 cuts through some pretty thick pieces of metal. And this is a brand new blade, and this is the blade I had on there. And if I put that up, you know, pretty flat at the bottom, you can see there's still a lot of this left. Now it has kind of, like, you can see some of the wear on the sides as well, but it's hardly used the blade up at all. So when it comes to, you know, is this the best way of doing it? Absolutely not. It's probably the second to worst way of doing it is with one of these kind of saws. But if you got no money and you have one of these saws that you picked up for cheap, you pick up one of these Diablo blades and you will be pleasantly happy with the cuts you get. And they're a lot better than trying to do it by hand with just like an angle grinder or something like that. Definitely going to be more accurate than that. So I would recommend this if you have no other option and you're like me, where you're just trying to make do until you can afford something better. But if you can afford something better, by all means go pick up the better saws for this type of thing. The next step up would be to get like a chop saw that's form metal that uses these kind of blades, and the best one you can get would be one that probably uses some sort of a metal blade. The only reason why they talk about bad things about these is they seem to deflect some. Personally, if I could find one of a chop saw, a metal cutting chop saw that only had a 10-inch blade on it, that's probably what I would go with, because I don't think there's anything I would personally cut that needed more than that. And I don't think these 10-inch blades would deflect near as much as like the 12 and 14, and I think they go up from there, blades that are like this. But that's my personal opinion. I have no experience. The only kind of experience I have is with one of these. I've never even tried one of those other ones. So I'm going to call that a video. Yet again, if you have no other means of doing it, this works. Alright, this is Sam, Jack of all, Master of none, and you all have a good one.